Hello and welcome to my September wrap up. In the month of September I managed to read a total of 9 books, which is pretty good going for me. 5 of those were physical books, 2 were ebooks and 2 were audiobooks, and the 2 ebooks also happened to be ARCs as well. So let's get into it. The first book that I read in September was Roar by Cora Carmack. I buddy read this with Caroline, whose link I will leave down below. We both found it quite a slow start. I think I struggled with it a bit more than she did to begin with, but by the middle we were definitely both involved, and it was getting really interesting. The last couple of chapters were a little bit jarring. They didn't feel quite right. It seemed the author seemed to rush through a bit that could have been dragged out a bit more, and then threw in something at the end that I really think was unnecessary. But having said that, it's intrigued us enough that we both want to continue reading, and I think I gave it a 4 out of 5 stars on Goodreads. It's probably more a 3.75, but I did really enjoy it, and I do plan on continuing with the series. Then I read Wonder Woman Warbringer by Leigh Bardugo. I haven't read an awful lot of Leigh Bardugo stuff. I've read the first book in the Grisha series, but I haven't continued on with it yet, not because of any other reason other than I just haven't got around to it yet. I think I went into this wrong. I expected it to be linked to the recent movie, and it really isn't. It's a complete different standalone AU type thing. It was good. There were parts of it I really enjoyed, but on the whole, I was just a little bit let down. Yeah, I enjoyed it, but I wouldn't say it was like mind-blowingly amazing, which I kind of expected it to be. I think there was a lot of hype around this book, and I expected a lot more from it than I got, which is a shame. But yeah, I still enjoyed reading it. I'd say it's a 3.5 stars. The next book that I read was an ARC that I received from NetGalley, and that is Prisoner of Ice and Snow by Ruth Lauren. This is a middle grade children's book, and while I enjoyed it, it very much felt like a children's book. Other than the main character, none of the others were really particularly well developed. The storyline was quite simple, about a girl who has to save her sister from prison, essentially. And there's a few twists and turns in it. I found them quite predictable personally, but for a middle grade book it wasn't too bad. I gave it a 3 out of 5 stars. The next book that I read was Mirror Mirror by Cara Delevingne. I was granted an ARC of this on NetGalley, and hadn't even realised she was coming out with a book, to be completely honest. Obviously I know her from like Suicide Squad, and thought I'd give her book a go. Considering it's contemporary, it was really good. I enjoyed it a lot. I love the characters, I love the storyline. I thought everything was really well developed, well thought out, quite up to date as well. The language she uses as well I particularly liked. There was no, fluffing it up for people. I related very much to how they spoke and the worries and concerns they had, even though they're younger than I am. I really enjoyed the characters and related quite a lot to them, so I enjoyed it a lot. I gave that a 5 out of 5 stars. The next book was an audiobook that I listened to, and that was Royal Bastards by Andrew Schwartz. I loved this book. I loved it a lot. I love the characters, I love the storyline, I love the twists and turns that I didn't see coming all the time. The narrator was perfect. I loved the changes she did for each character, and she kept them continuously throughout the story. Yeah, really enjoyed it, and super looking forward to the next one, which I think is coming out next year. So yeah, I highly recommend that one. 5 out of 5 stars, definitely. The next book I read was Things a Bright Girl Can Do by Sally Nichols. I buddy read this with Caroline. We got this in our book box club box, and I really enjoyed it. Considering it's not contemporary because it's set in like World War One, but it's real life, like historical fiction, I suppose, is the actual term. But I really enjoyed it. It's about the suffragette movement during World War One, and how obviously the war affected that, and the different groups of women that were campaigning for women's rights. Obviously the suffragettes are known a bit more for their gung-ho methods, shall we say, and then the suffragists, who were a bit more passive and wanted to do things through talking and, you know, things like that. So it was a really interesting read, and I did learn quite a lot about that time that I didn't maybe appreciate or realise before. So yeah, that was a 4 out of 5 stars. Then the next book that I read was Frog Kisser by Garth Nix. This again is a middle grade book, but I really enjoyed this one. We follow the main character. It's kind of a retelling of the Frog Prince, and we follow the main character as she has to go throughout this kingdom to try and turn this frog back into a prince, because her sister, who was supposed to be the princess in love with him, refuses to kiss a frog. It's really interesting, actually. There's a lot more to it than you think at the beginning, and the storyline really kept me quite gripped, and I was quite enjoying going to read it. Yeah, so I do recommend this one. I gave it I think 4 out of 5 stars. Then the next book that I read was Wicked Like a Wildfire by Lana Popovich. I buddy read this. This was the Fairy Loot book for August, and I actually found my Fairy Loot buddy for the first time ever since I've been getting box since January, and I read it with her, and it was really good fun. It took me longer to get into it than it did her, but once I did, I was really intrigued. The ending was really interesting, and apparently the next book, I think, is from the point of view of the other sisters, because it's about 2 sisters. And the next one is the point of view of the other sister, which I will be really interested to read. So I am going to continue on with that series too. I'd give that a 3.75 out of 5 stars. And the last book was an audiobook that I actually finished listening to yesterday. Today's the 1st of October. And that is Fireblood by Ellie Blake. If I can get, there we go. I listened to Frostblood last month, and luckily Fireblood was being released this month, so I got on that too. Really enjoyed it. Love Ruby, love her story. Was a little bit annoyed at the love triangle aspect that was thrown in there, but I could handle it because the story was really good, and it moved the whole series on and moved Ruby's character on as well. And yeah, I am very much enjoying that series and looking forward to the last book, which I think is coming out next June. So those are the 9 books that I read. Let me know in the comments down below if you've read any, or what you read for September, anything you recommend. And as always, if you like the video, please give it a thumbs up. But that's it for now, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!